welcome to Ben's Almost Here, the pre-tanked up game show. Yeah, it's a game show. Now I got to quiz you guys. What episode number was Adam last on?
Oh God, I don't even know that.
213.
Ooh.
All right, are you sure about that? He says, killing time, such that he can look up the answer to this question.
I don't know how are you even gonna look it up?
Sorry?
How are you even gonna look it up?
I'm gonna assume our site is good at searching.
I'm gonna put tanked up plus Adam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that's gonna work.
I have it here.
Oh.
I think. Oh. I think this is correct. Yep. Yeah. Any other guesses? 213 was Lucy's.
I'm guessing I reckon it's in the 200s. It's got to have been within the last year. And I think Lucy's probably closest. I'll go 226.
Ben? Adam?
I'll split the difference and say 220.
See, the thing is,
everyone
227. Ben got it within one and didn't go over.
Nice.
Wow. But Adam still wins. Price is Right.
What?
Or did he say 220?
Yeah.
I win by default.
Ben said 226, and so he got it one below. But also, what did you say, Adam? You said 220?
220.
Yeah.
The one before that was 221.
Oh.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
So you just
no
calling
what,
me?
I was prolific back then. On two almost.
Yeah. So basically,
I suck. Thank you.
Yeah, Lucy's wrong. Yeah, that was 227 Fall Guys and the Marmalade Climb, and 221 Ghost of Glasgow. This is just a shout out to Ben's nameology, which I appreciate every week.
Yeah, I know. I remember exactly what you lot talked about those episodes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Episodes, if I do say so
the
myself.
names do help us remember slightly what we talked about, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that might be the coldest of cold opens we've ever done.
Absolutely.
Well, it's nice for me to come back and immediately cause shambolic energy to just crash into the podcast.
Agreed.
Perfect. In a perfect place. Perfect place for us to start.
From my
week.
life to yours.
Yeah. Nice. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome friends to Tanked Up. I'm one of your hosts, Ben. It's episode 267. One of the people you can hear is Lucy.
The artist formerly known as Lucy.
Brilliant.
I'm no more.
It's just news to me.
A spectre.
From shambolic energy to depressing energy. It was a short hop, but we made it.
That's good. We're also here with Adel.
It's me.
Hey. And joining us this week, as everyone can hear, is Adam. Hey, man.
Hello. Back with my shambolic energy as previously described.
Perfect. For listeners who haven't heard you for almost a year, I guess. 227 was it? So that's 40 episodes ago. Not quite a year, but it must be last summer sometime. Been... July, August kind of time, I guess.
That would have been April 9th.
Was it really?
0409? Or wait, it's day, month.
So
the 9th of
September.
Sorry, I grew up on the other place. The place that doesn't do things right. And I'm reformed, but sometimes I slip up, and I don't need your judgment.
That's fair. No one's judging. But it was September, so nearly ago. So for those people who haven't caught up with you for almost a year, Adam, how are you doing?
I mean, everyone's seen the news, right?
So good then.
So in relative terms, great.
Perfect.
Because I've been fine. But
good.
Could be much worse, but a wee bit up and down. The usual. I've been trying to keep myself as busy as possible, and that is difficult when nothing is open and you can't go anywhere.
That is fair.
Well, my year's already better because you're on the podcast. So.
Hey.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
Nice.
I hope not to have changed your mind by the end.
Never do.
Where the next episode will be like, my year's so much better because Adam isn't here this time.
Well, we won't know for at least another week. So let's launch into this week and enjoy your shambolic energy with us. Let's open some beers. Lucy, I'm going to start with you because looks like you've already got one cracked.
Yep, already opened it. Already on the tanked up train. This is the Brew York beer for their Freaky Friday birthday thing recently. This is the last one that I had. This one is actually the 14% Rocky Road's ice cream pastry stout called the Dream Child. So they had it. Was it between 11% and 15%? 5 beers or however you work it out. Yeah, this is the second highest percentage. And I found with these beers that some of them tasted the same. Like, kind of. A lot like motor oil.
Oh.
But good motor oil.
Okay.
Oh, the expensive stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good
Premium.
Yeah, the premium diesel that I put in my car, and I can't drive around Birmingham anymore. The government told me to buy a diesel car. But anyway, I can describe it in a bit. Already poured it, so I'll have my tasting notes ready.
Perfect. Adel, we'll come to you next. What are you drinking?
I be drinking Thing the beer. Thing the beer this week is by Siren. It is Scattered Light. It is a 3-wood barley wine.
Oh.
It comes in a 440ml can. It's very pretty.
You
can see the wood that is being referred to. So I believe
can I guess the woods? Can I guess which woods? Does it say which woods?
I mean,
Beech.
sort of. It's
Oak.
nope,
Ash.
not. Nope. Oh wait, oak's in there.
Oak. Cedar.
Pine.
Nope.
Willow.
Willow.
Into a barrel?
Yeah.
Balsall.
There are 3 woods. One of them is oak.
Elijah.
What was the last thing you said, Ben?
James.
Nope, not James Woods. Why don't I just read this text? Our latest take on a style steeped in tradition, caramel, toffee, and burnt sugar flavors built out of a classic malt base with flashes of vanilla wafers, berries, and citrus hop notes. Spinning the beer through cypress, oak, and maple, spirals impacts a nutty complexity, balancing rich sweetness with juicy tannins and a long, dry finish. It is a hefty 10% alcohol by volume, so I'm starting strong.
Yeah. I thought you were, leaning away from the Canadian. With the maple.
Yeah. No, it's not my fault. Blame Siren.
No, I started strong on a beer from what are they called? Wonder
Beyond.
Yeah, Wonder Beyond. That's the one. Which I just thought was like a 4% beer was actually 13%. So.
Oh, nice.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Bit of a difference.
Called Mango Monkeys. Didn't taste it at first, but then you look at the back of the can, it's like, oops.
That's
What have I done?
My head is gone.
Yeah. It's like a warming sensation.
The excellent of Wonder Beyond. They just mask that booze perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Amazingly.
To round out the beers, because I know Adam, you may have a drink, but you're not a beer man.
I mean, I don't have a beer, but I have this beautiful pint glass.
Looks like a stout. We'll say it's a stout.
Yeah.
It's nice and cheap. This pint glass comes in a pack of 4, and the Pepsi came sold separately, but that's beside the point.
Now, is this a maximum Pepsi or is it a regular old Pepsi?
It is a regular. It's blue. It is the blue Pepsi, original and best.
Classic.
Yes.
I much prefer Pepsi to Coke.
Yeah.
I think
Really?
Coke, yeah, I think Coke tastes like Pepsi that's sat on a radiator.
Well, I tend to find that depending on where you go, I sometimes get an upset stomach or that from Coca-Cola, but
okay.
But I've never had any problem with Pepsi no matter where I've went.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
This is new to me.
That's fair.
I think outside of old original recipe Dr. Pepper with the sugar's cane instead of the high fructose corn syrup, I think Coke in a glass bottle with cane syrup is probably the best like cola for me. I mean, but it's so hard to find in the worst. I think Coke is terrible in the big bottles. Something about it in the plastic and giving it as soon as it's cracked, you have to consume it quickly, otherwise something goes wrong. Maybe it is the radiator that's apparently built in.
Yeah, the first glass gives you a false sense of security that this is going to be good, and then the other glasses are significantly less good. Yeah, no, glass bottles are definitely the way to go if you can, but unfortunately they're all pricey as hell. So
yeah,
cheap and plastic is the way.
That's why I just drink beer.
That's it.
It's cheaper than Coke. I think I fucked up.
Whoa.
Almost is. I bought a pack of Red Bull from like my friend for their birthday. It was like a cost of like Carling, and I'm just like, just drink.
Oh yeah,
Carling.
Red Bull.
I mean, you might have screwed up on the pricing, Adel, but at least after your 4-pack of beers, you're not going to care about the price.
Yeah, that's true.
Brilliant. I will round us out then. I'm drinking Arbor's Pocket Rocket, which is a beer I've had before. A beer I know, Adel, you've had before, which you may have had on an episode as well, I think, previously. I had no beer. I panicked. I ran to the shop round the corner. Luckily, they also sell Arbor's. And I sat in the sun earlier, so I got myself a nice 3-pack for 10 quid. Drank one earlier.
Oh, nice.
So I'm currently...
I'm surprised there wasn't a canteen on like the corner shop in Bristol. So, you know.
It's not that fancy.
I mean, it's close.
It is.
If
I run to the corner
reams and
shop,
reams of champagne before you got to
That's
the
it, yes.
Arbor.
Exactly. That's what I had to do. It was just
I'm not finding
luxury
any craft beer
alcohol
when I go
everywhere.
to the corner shop. I might find a stab wound on the way to the corner shop.
Oh, who makes
Not
that
craft
one?
beer.
I mean, Stab Wound could easily be the name of a craft beer, to be
Oh,
fair.
yeah, it definitely is.
Ben, I had it on the 8th of January. It all comes back to Hades.
Okay.
So if you want to know my feelings about that, because I don't remember all the details, go listen to that episode.
Well, it's 3.9%. That's all Arbor give us. Full flavoured session pale ale, brewed with Simcoe, Citra, and Mosaic hops. That is all they wrote. So, Lucy, we'll roll back around. How's the... Was it the Dream Child?
Yeah, Dream Child.
Is it a Freddy Krueger styled can?
Yes, Freddy's on there. Molly's Glory. I don't know what a Rocky Road tastes like, to be perfectly honest. I don't even remember what they are. There's some chocolates or something. I don't eat chocolates, so I don't know.
It's like a little chocolate cake with bits in, right? It's kind of made up of lots of different things usually, and some of them can have.
Chocolate?
I mean, it might be. They've got. I think some of them have biscuit in. Some of them might have cornflakes in.
Right.
Some of them might have marshmallows in.
I don't know. I can't compare it to a Rocky Road, unfortunately. But you are definitely getting the ice cream flavors in it. You're getting sort of like vanilla, maybe a little bit of strawberry as well. Let me read a bit of the flavor text. It says chocolate, marshmallow, and caramel. Really, so
okay.
Those are the flavors you're meant to be getting. I'm getting a bit of vanilla, a bit of I imagine there's lactose in here. No, it doesn't look like it. Just malted oats by the looks of it. Oh yes, there's lactose as well. So yeah, definitely getting that milky, slightly, I guess, Neapolitan ice cream kind of flavor in it.
Okay.
It's when I said motor oil before, it's because these literally poured looking like motor oil, like very little head, at the start, and it quickly dissipated. But it is very, looks gloopy and viscous, but on drinking it, it's not too heavy. In terms of its like alcoholic like content as well, it's like, even though you can probably tell, this is an imperial stout, just from like probably more from the sweetness and the sugar that's in it. In terms of strength, you couldn't tell me that it's like 14%, and blind testing couldn't tell you that. Probably looking more around maybe 8-9%.
Wow. That's quite something to bring it down that much. Yeah.
As I say, it's probably the sweetness that gives it away, the strength away that much, because I just imagine with all that alcohol, it's probably hard to get the sweetness down, especially with the lactose and whatever else they put in it to make it, that caramelly, marshmallowy, rocky road or whatever it's called. So, but
Fair.
yeah, it's nice. I think I prefer the Brew York beers that are. I probably prefer the Ton Coco range, to be quite honest. Just because they seem a little bit more reserved. They've obviously gone for it, and it's their birthday, and these are, beers that they won't brew on a regular basis. But I think I just love the Ton Coco series. I think they get the balance really right, because I'm not a massive fan of sweet beers, and this is very sweet. So I think with the Ton Coco series, no matter what the strength, they still have that kind of bitterness, just paring back that sweetness.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's good. It's good. I'm glad I bought them. Glad I tried them.
Good. Cool.
This is the last one. Yeah, it's good.
Nice.
I mean, I think they make the best stouts in the country, probably. So these
high praise.
Proof that this is just proof that they can do it on an even stronger level and not make them unpalatable like some beers that have definitely gone to like 14-15% would be. So
yeah,
good job.
Good. Adel, we'll come back to you for the Three Woods barley wine. I can't remember what it was called. Scattered.
Literally
something.
Well, it's a 3-wood barley wine. It's called Scattered Light.
Right.
I believe they signify the dappling of light through a wooded with 3 types of trees in it. So it's you can smell the alcohol, nice and sweet. Almost no head on the pour. Almost looks like a berry juice. It's got that like a strong red tone to it.
Yeah, you can see that just where it catches the light.
Yeah, I mean it's still clearly beer, but it's just quite red, and there's almost a pinkiness to it, at least in this light.
If you were a bit
Like a
blurrier, I
red
would have
ale.
thought that was a Ribena.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, just like a slightly too orange Ribena. It's just not quite rich enough in the reds. Anyway,
It looks like that Flanders beer that I had last week.
Oh yeah, totally. The nose is quite sweet, a little bit of vanilla, and you get that maltiness from the barley wine right away. It's been a while since I've had a barley wine.
Expected to be strong.
Yeah, but the thing, barley wines, because there's like those like caramelly toffee sweet notes, they kind of mask how much of the sweetness is probably just like the pure unadulterated alcohol at 10%.
Yeah.
Like it melds really well, and so you end up having this really like slightly vanilla-y, light caramel, slightly burnt, and then kind of like if you had a bit of shortbread that was covered in a caramel.
Okay.
And there's not quite enough shortbread such that the caramel's kind of too much. Like you wouldn't like the biscuit. Yeah. It's that level. That's like the biscuitiness is there, but it's quite toned down, and it's letting all these other more toffee malty notes come through. So there is biscuitiness, but it's sort of reserved. This could go down really quickly, especially on a hot day like today.
Nice. Even at 10%.
Oh, I can't tell that 10%, and it's quite thin. Like if you because there's almost no carbonation, it feels like I'm just drinking something quite light. You can kind of tell again. There's the viscosity when you if you think about it, you can tell. Oh yeah, this isn't just like a juice or a water. But other than that, it's sweet. It's vanilla-y. Like I said, it's got that toffee that's sort of helping pull it away from being sickly sweet. Just that slightly more burnt or more toffee than caramel notes. And there's this zip of my brain wants to say key lime, but I think it's actually more like a regular lime. It's just the sweet. There's also all the sweetness, so that it's got this fresh citrus, just sort of right, like a sprinkling on top. Like it's sort of there the whole time, but it's quite light, and so it's only when the main taste starts to fade that you're like, oh, that's what that crispiness was citrusy. And then everything else kind of fades away, and that's when the sort of more malty, biscuity, toffee flavor lingers. And actually, now that I've been rambling enough about it, the finish is quite like that. Burnt toffee is the thing that lasts the most, which is very satisfying. So might be the key to me drinking this slowly, because I'm quite enjoying this really long, sort of burnt caramel toffee, sweet, biscuity finish.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. I won't linger on Pocket Rocket too much. It's a beer that we've
She said.
chatted about before, but it's a very easy beer. But it's such a light. I think it was 4%, 3.9%. It's very light, super sessionable, and it's got this kind of almost instant mix of grapefruit and lime as its sort of main flavour kind of running through. But almost instantly you're hit with this lovely bitter pininess to it. So it starts off, the initial flavour is a tad bit kind of bitter, but super citrusy, really limey as well. And then it's just like, bam, here's a bitterness. Here's some piney bitterness. And that mixes with that grapefruit and that lime and sits very nicely, and then just lingers a little bit, and it dries out reasonably, so you then want to kind of go back in. But it's that mix of then like lime and that piney bitterness, which is the kind of the big finishing note that sticks around. And whilst it's dried out, and whilst I want to reach for it, I don't have to, because I'm still getting that sort of limey, piney bitterness lingering around that just that little bit. So I think it's Arbor do some very good kind of, not one note, but they do very good beers which kind of go, this is the flavour, this is how you're going to experience it. We might just move on just at this little bit, and that's it. That's what you're going to get.
Because they do like single hop beers a lot of the time, don't they?
They do. Yeah.
When you said BAM, I thought you were making an E3 reference to the Connect itself.
Not
quite.
quite.
That's very timely.
Yes. Oh yeah, I get that would have been, wouldn't it, with it around the corner. I mean, where the fuck has E3 suddenly come from? It's just like, oh yeah, it's here. It's like, oh yeah, so it is.
It seems like
Who even knew?
A trash fire. I've been reading like the whole E3 portal thing, and it seems like there's a new live stream from a different publisher every day.
Yep.
I'm just gonna watch the Euros and not care.
That seems fair. I did go onto their media registration page to try and register, and then read that all that actually does is get you some like high quality assets. Doesn't get you any any kind of access to anything additionally. And it was saying like, if you are this, please provide us your credentials on letter-headed paper from said company. I'm like, I can't be fucking bothered to do any of that sort of shit. Exactly. And then everyone knows where you live, and you're fucked.
Yeah. Apparently, they only have like he, him pronouns on everything as well.
Oh, really?
She, her. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
What is it? When's Pride Month again?
We may be in it.
No, that can't. They could possibly.
No, it's just he, him.
Yes, I guess they just went straight to the G in LGBTQ.
You know what? I'm so outraged by that. I'm just gonna leave. I do need to turn my light on though. It's getting dark, so I'll be 2 seconds.
It's actually so bare, but oh my god, he's actually leaving.
He's done. He's had enough.
We lost him.
It's actually so bare bones. You'd think the intern put it together, but that's even. I think the intern would be like kind of,
a bit more switched on.
Yeah.
I made that sound very professional. Yeah, my bad.
No, I love that.
Just like E3.
You actually got up and which is what we should do with most of the controversy that we talk about.
Yeah. If we get time,
they don't put that basic level of effort into including half the world. Like, why bother?
Yeah. If we do get time, I might have a bit of a controversial topic to talk about, but
I almost want to put that first.
No. Let's leave that one. We'll come to that one. We'll come to that
Are
one.
you worried that we'll all get up and leave Ben? Then is that what?
Well, I think it's
doing the rest of the podcast yourself.
Yeah. It's one of those where we all think very, very similarly about certain topics and things. But I just wanted to bring some things to kind of to light to give to our listeners who may not be quite as into beer or video games, because it's something I want to talk about which kind of crosses across both things at the moment as well. But we'll hopefully find 10 minutes at the end just to get to that.
Go for it. It sounds important.
No, I haven't got me
You
bits
don't have
ready.
to now, but I'm just saying,
We'll make space for it as
We'll
well.
make space for it. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Let's kick off then, Adam, as you are joining us this week to talk about a very specific topic, I believe.
Speaking of making space, spaceship game. Yeah. Elite Dangerous Odyssey came out 2 weeks ago? 1 week ago? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, about that.
Recently. It came out recently. And I was very fortunate that Out of Lives managed to get a code, and I was given it to play and hopefully come up with some things to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a bit of a problem trying to figure out how I would go about writing about it, because it being an expansion on an MMO in the style that Elite Dangerous is, I couldn't think of a good way of doing just a review of the content of it alone without talking about the wider game.
Mm-hmm.
And
that seems fair.
Yeah, and Elite Dangerous in particular, I have a soft spot for. I've played a lot of it over the years since it came out, and Odyssey's not gone down particularly well overall with a lot of the fans of the game.
Yeah, this is how you know. It's like I don't know anything about Elite Dangerous, but I've heard about the controversy. So
yeah, and it follows a very similar kind of very Elite Dangerous-y pattern in the way that this goes. And I was trying to figure out the right way of kind of expressing the problems it has, while contextualizing why those are there, and also trying to compare it slightly, which is something I think I've done before if I've talked about it on this podcast or on some of the other ones I've done, which is comparing it to Star Citizen, which has a very similar beginning and arc to it, but it's the polar opposite in like every conceivable way. Like since then, they both started as Kickstarter projects to get funded in 2012. Elite Dangerous and Star Citizen both in the same year.
From 2012.
Yeah, that's when they were kickstarted. Elite's been in development at Frontier for a long time before that, as a sort of background project while they were working on other games that they've been publishing. Because Frontier Developments has been around since 1998. And so they've been planning basically to make another Elite game kind of since the last one that they made, which would have been kind of around that time, I would imagine, or maybe even before Frontier itself became what it is now. So they've been making other projects for stuff. There's like a Wallace and Gromit game and some other licensed projects and stuff like that. There is some stuff on there that I've recognised the names of when I was looking it up, but I haven't wrote them down because I'm an idiot. I have a nice wee fact sheet here, but I forgot to write down a couple of the other things that they've made that isn't recent. So they were working on it in the background for that, and they were struggling to find a publisher to take it the last kind of hurdle and let them work on it full time. And so the solution they came to was, well, Elite was a beloved franchise and a bit of a cult following from back in the kind of early 80s or the late 80s. So we'll go for the Kickstarter model and see if we can get the money we need to kick it on and then self-publish it. And that's the kind of arc that they've went down. And then so Elite Dangerous, the proper version, came out in the 16th of December 2014. So they actually released 1.0, here's a game to buy. Star Citizen didn't. And so there's no way of escaping the fact that, Elite Dangerous has gone on this arc, and Odyssey does have a lot of problems that have came about, some of which are almost too predictable, that with how everything's went, and they kind of see the history the developer has with working on Elite, that it's kind of sad. But also some new ones that suggest that maybe a few things have slipped, or that maybe the pressure of needing to release this to keep themselves afloat has kind of gotten to them after a while. But I can't help but continuously keep in the back of my mind, yeah, but at least they released it. I always have this kind of comparison narrative running that...
Which starts,
yeah, because I do have a soft spot for Frontier, because they've also made you know, a couple other games that I really like, the Planet Coaster.
I was just like Planet Coaster, right?
Yeah, which you know, Planet Coaster is a roller coaster tycoon style game that they made. Planet Zoo is also the same, but for running a zoo, you know, and they make good stuff. And Elite, obviously, I've played a lot of. Yeah, so I do have a soft spot for them, but that doesn't take away the genuine criticism that there should be. But also, I feel like you need to give them that bit of credit that they've gone about this in quote unquote the right way, and that they've worked away on the game and they've built it and they've released it, and you can either buy it or you don't need to buy it.
So this expansion, was that also in early access, or did they just push that?
It went through alpha and beta processes, which is what all of them have kind of done. You know, Elite Dangerous back in 2012, that's the only time it's been kickstarted. Everything else has been paid for.
Regular funded?
Yeah, so that's the other side of it as well. So the original game came out in 2014. The first proper paid expansion for it was Horizons, which came out about a year later. In fact, a year later almost to the day. It's the 15th of December 2015, and it was the 16th of December 2014 that the original came out. And Horizons added a character creator, so you could create, you know, like your pilot image. It added planetary landings, which gave you a vehicle called an SRV that you could have in your ship, and you could go and you could drive about on planets, specifically kind of rocky and icy ones that didn't have atmospheres. That was kind of the limitation. They had ship launch fighters added. They had multi-crew, which is in ships that are big enough, they have like 2 seats or 3 seats in them, so you could have someone join you in your ship and go about doing stuff that way, and they could control like some of your weapons that are turreted and all that. You could set them up that way, or they could launch in the fighter and go about and help you in combat and things like that.
Nice.
And as well, they added a different kind of mission, which is passenger missions. And since then, everything they've added to the game has been free until Odyssey launched this year.
Nice.
With the exception of a kind of cosmetics store thing that they've added, which gives you like paint jobs. You can change the color of like your lasers and your engine trails, and you can buy like ship kits, which is like adding big stupid spoilers and stuff to the, like, as if it was a car. You know, I think 1999 Honda Civic with a big fuck off wing on the back, and that's kind of what ship kits are like.
Hey, we don't have to have another week where we mock the lovely Honda Civic.
We had a week of that.
Yeah. So, you know, so the idea, it being an MMO, I will explain properly what that game actually is in a second. I forgot I missed that part.
Yeah, I still have no idea.
Yeah, I've skipped over that part. But yeah, so...
I know it's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, so apart from, you know, adding in cosmetics, which are entirely optional, they're not gameplay related in any way. They are just cosmetic stuff, as a way of, you know, making a bit of money on the game. In terms of releases for Elite itself, Odyssey is the second expansion that they've released, and that's not a lot considering that in that time they have never stopped development on it. It's been through a lot of changes since 2015.
For an MMO,
very well.
Yeah. You kind of expect a pattern of every couple of years, don't you, for them to push out the next big sort of update.
Yeah. Kind of like what FF14 does, right? Like there's a new expansion coming out in October that you'll have to buy, and that's how you'll get access to in-game content, etc.
Yeah, it raises the level cap and adds a new area and dungeon and some enemies and whatever, and a bit of story, and yeah. So Yeah, so I'll explain what Elite Dangerous is before I forget again. So what Frontier did is it's a hard sci-fi, it's very scientific based using proper data and models. And what they've did is they've made a 1-to-1 scale Milky Way galaxy to explore and run about in. That's like 400 billion star systems.
That's madness.
Yeah. And to date, less than 5% of that has been 5% of those have been visited by players so far.
I mean, what?
Yeah, so it's the fact that it exists at all is
very cool.
Yeah, it's massive. It's absolutely insanely huge that they've managed to pull that off.
It sounds like the reverse No Man's Sky, where that was hated out of the gate, whereas this had some goodwill. And it's sort of like, the reception to the expansion. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of where you're going to go, but why is the backlash so strong for a game that is seem to be lauded and loved by people? Is it because they know that they can get a higher standard, or?
It's a combination of a couple of things. The first one is frustration, I think, because the people who love Elite Dangerous play it like an MMO. They play it every day or most days, or every week at the minimum. They put thousands and thousands of hours in, and they do engage with it on kind of every level. And I've played a lot of the game, and I don't play it to that extreme in the sense that what tends to happen with me in terms of playing it is I tend to play it quite a lot for a few weeks. I get the itch that that's what I want to do. I'm going to do something, and I get in, I start doing things, and then a couple of weeks go by, and I have to pull myself away from it. And then it'll be a while before I go back to it, and that's kind of been my arc with it. I kind of play it quite a lot for a little while, and then drop off and come back to it. And it's always been here in that time. So part of it is frustration because the game has always had when you play a game that much, you always run into its limitations very quickly. And you see the areas where it needs improving, and then every player is different. You have all different things that you can do. There's ship-to-ship combat, there's just trading, you can go mining, something I've written about for Out of Lives before. There's bounty hunting, there's missions, there's all this. There's exploring as well, which you can set yourself up in a ship and just go out to see the interesting stuff that happens to be out there that's been modelled and is, realistic and all the rest of it. And there is a lot of good stuff to see, but you butt up against the limitations that it has. And so, inevitably, like every game, you want to see it improve. And if you enjoy a game in that way, you want to see them improve the bit that you like to play. And so, the this pace of the change in the game is quite slow, and there's two main reasons for that, which is one, the scale of the game is huge. There's a lot of procedural generation in it. There's a lot of real scientific data and stuff that goes into it. There's all these various systems because, as I say, the Milky Way galaxy that they've created is itself massive, but there's also a lot of stuff to do in it, in the sense that you have a trading system, you have ship combat, you have mining, you have this, and all these missions, and there's a simulation going on of what's called the bubble, which is kind of all the human inhabited systems, which are all in a kind of spot about this big in the massive Milky Way, where all and there's a whole politics system. There's companies that build the ships and things like that. All the systems have various factions in them that control different systems. They control the stations that you can go to, or the planetary outposts and stuff. And they give you different missions, and they're all competing with one another. And that's happening on every system that's inhabited in that whole place. So there's all these systems running constantly, simulating all this.
I can't even comprehend. This is just
of course, anytime you want to change something, the potential problems that you create in breaking something else, that to the outside obviously as a player looks completely unrelated because you don't see the back end of this stuff, how they manage to piece it all together and make it run. So people go, oh, you really need to change, trying to think of something, how much reputation you get for missions so that you can progress up the kind of faction ranks and things like that. And they go, okay, so we've adjusted that, but for some reason every time we adjust that, this other thing breaks over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now so they have to spend all the time working out why that happens and if they can stop it happening, so that they know whether they can put it out. And so for that the scale of the problem is so huge in that regard that of course it takes a lot of time and a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the reasons that becomes a problem in itself is Frontier Developments they're an independent studio. They're listed on the stock market. I've got here as well. Tencent bought like 9% of them in 2017 or something like that.
Shouldn't they get 10%?
That would have been nice, wouldn't it? In 2017 they bought a 9% stake. They're listed on the stock market.
Which changes everything, as we know.
Yeah, you can buy shares in them, but they're an independent studio, so they're not sitting with,
Epic or something.
An Epic Games or like Amazon Studios or whatever, with their many, many billions of money that they can throw at all this. And I've seen listed as well that as of the 31st of December 2012, so last year, they had 600 employees at Frontier. That's in total across. I'm pretty sure there's 3 development teams at Frontier at the moment.
Okay, I'd say that's still decent size.
200
each, but for the scope that you're talking about.
And I've no way, and 200 each per team potentially, but the 600 employees is the entire company. Not all of them are going to be developers working on the games themselves, and with no way of knowing how big each of the teams are at any one time. So there's the elite team, there's the planet,
and then there's
series
the dangerous
teams. But I think all of the teams are dangerous. There's the planet team that's worked on Planet Coaster, Planet Zoo, and I'm sure there's another team as well, because they would have made Jurassic World Evolution, and I'm sure they're working on something else. That might not be the case anymore. That's kind of speculation. But there's at least 2 teams, and I reckon there's 3. I'm sure there is a third.
Well, there's a potential of 3 teams, and maybe that third and a couple of other people sort of shift their time quite a lot between, dependent on what's needed. Whether that's all of their QA currently works on X, and then they all shift over to them when it gets to that stage, and then they go back to, I would imagine they need a huge, with Elite, just QA constantly.
Yeah, you would imagine so, because it definitely needs it. So those kind of 2 kind of main threads of the size of the game and the kind of limitations of game development, and that there's only so many of them, and there's only so much money that they can throw at it at any one time. Creates this kind of, trying to think of a good analogy, the weighed down progress, and that everything that they make is very slow to come out. So changes are very slow to proceed, and unfortunately, when they do make very big changes, they tend to run into issues when that launches, which is what's happened with Odyssey. And so it's inevitable, particularly because expectations are very high, just in kind of the game and the video game kind of world in general, particularly with like the THQs and stuff of the world kind of falling away. There isn't a lot of slightly buggy, a wee bit kind of games anymore. The expectation is that even the small games are very well polished. They're just scoped small to compensate for that. And there's you either get the very big budget games or you get the wee tiny games, and there's not a lot in between a lot of the time.
You say THQ fellow, but have you heard of Biomutant?
I have, and I've not heard good things about that either, funnily enough. Although I don't.
It's there's a massive gulf though between triple A polished Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, and
and there's a big gulf in expectation as well.
Yeah,
and I think with everything, this is a wider topic in general, but with the world as it is, there's so much content and everything else going about that everyone has a lot less patience for stuff that's not up to whatever they deem their standard for that thing. So you're not going to listen to music that you think is a wee bit naff or that doesn't hit the right notes for you. And like podcasts is a good one. If you go onto a podcast and the audio quality you feel isn't good enough, you're not going to listen for very long. No comment on mine.
I agree with that, but I think it's also like, you don't have to love everything. It feels like the people involved in like playing Elite Dangerous, they've already invested, so it's not like, as you say, people play thousands of hours, so there may not be an alternative, especially on this scope and where they've invested so much time with. So I think maybe that's more of a, if it came out, it's like, this isn't everything we meant it to be. Those people might have just started waiting for Star Citizen and been just like dead in the skeletons waiting.
This is exactly why Star Citizen becomes such a brilliant comparison point for it, because for all Odyssey is launched, I should tell you actually what else has came out. So Horizons launched in 2015 with the planetary landings and stuff that I mentioned earlier. In the 2 years that followed, they added 2 alien civilizations to the game. One is an extinct civilization, so it's kind of the remnants of them that have appeared, that you can go exploring ruins and stuff like that. And the other one is one that's familiar to Elite fans, which is the Thargoids. They started kind of showing up, and then people started encountering them, and then conflict has come out of that since, and that's a big part of the kind of narrative of the universe of Elite. Because this is set within the universe of the previous games, so it's just a few years on from the last time. So the Thargoids had gone away. No one had known where they went. They weren't sure if they'd gone extinct or if they just pissed off to the far corner of the Milky Way somewhere where we couldn't find them. And now
that's where I want to go.
And so the part, I would join them definitely. And part of the story of Elite is it's been progressing very slowly over the years, is the Thargoids reappearing and the conflict that's came up because of that, because certain systems are kind of Thargoid systems where they appear a lot, and people are trying to develop resources, very similar to a lot of the stuff you read about in the conflicts that happen in the news on the Earth now. It follows that very realistic sci-fi kind of through line of all this stuff. Then there was a series of free updates called the Beyond updates, and they launched kind of over 2018 and into 2019. They improved a lot of the core gameplay mechanics, so there was improvements to like the crime and punishment system that updated that. There was a big update to the mining system, which is actually one of the things that prompted the article I wrote at the time about it, because it went from a very basic but very therapeutic thing to having a lot more in it that you had to explore and deal with, because they overhauled it. They overhauled exploration, they added new kinds of missions and stuff, and they updated the visual engines. So like the procedural generation for the planets and everything had much higher quality assets, and they'd updated everything based on how it had worked. And then what Odyssey has added is one of the things that was forever but Star Citizen, okay, it's not came out yet, but it has this, and Elite doesn't have it, which was being able to get out of the ship and walk on planets.
I mean,
and have that first-person mode.
Does Star Citizen have that?
Star Citizen has nothing.
Star Citizen has nothing because it's not out. Yes, exactly. But the promise of Star Citizen was always that seamlessness. Because I remember being blown away by some of the demonstrations they've shown of it over the years of, you walking along, getting into the ship, flying out of a station with it, landing on a planet, getting out and walking about, and you can walk about inside your ships in Star Citizen and all this kind of stuff. And Elite's taking its first kind of proper step into that realm by adding being able to
Steps.
walk on planets. Yeah, it's first proper steps by adding steps, exactly, where you can walk on planets. The planets that you can land on has been expanded slightly to include ones that have light atmospheres. Again, the hard sci-fi reasons that you can't just land on planets with proper atmospheres, Earth-like worlds and things like that, is because they'd set them on fire and blow up their atmospheres by doing that because of the engines in the ships. So the fact that you can now do the light atmospheres is a big step forward, a big change. And with that comes first-person shooting mechanics, all new missions, new settlements to go to and explore. They added a taxi service.
Fast travel.
So it's not fast, but it's a taxi service. There's exobiology as well, so there's new things to go explore and find and take samples of and catalogue in the same way that when you were using just the ships, you would go to a system, you would scan it, you would see, oh, there's this planet and this kind of planet and this kind of planet, and you would go and scan them for more detailed maps of them and sell that data on, and that's how you would upgrade all that stuff. So they've added all that stuff, but for being in first person, as well as you can get out and look at your ship. You can get out in the stations, and there's a whole new area where when you land in the station, you go into the hangar, you can get out your ship, and then you can go into an area where you can pick up missions and stuff and do all that. And that also comes with a whole array of guns and suits and tools and stuff that comes along with all that stuff. So they've added a huge amount.
Because I was looking at like the screenshots when you said Elite Dangerous Odyssey. Yeah. I was like, I was thinking, I don't remember this being a first-person shooter.
Yeah,
but like,
up until Odyssey, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was a first-person ship shooter, because you're sitting in the pilot seat with the controls, and that's always been the Elite way. So this is a big step outside of that. It's
a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at it, like, can't say anything to the gameplay. Just looking at like the fidelity and like how much detail has gone into these environments and the guns and just everything. I understand why you want to give them clemency and like give them that birth to like correct things, and it's like to get this automatically correct out of the gate, especially when it seems like it's been something that's so community focused and maybe some stumbling blocks along the way and just constant iteration. It's sad to see that this has made the news, let's say, because the only reason why I heard of it is because of the negative backlash for a company that's trying so much.
It's been review bombed. It's all mostly negative on Steam at the moment, and that kind of thing. For fuck's sake. Yeah.
It's from what you've been saying, like I read that headline, I'm just like, oh, what happened? But knowing what's the team size and what's happened and how much of an undertaking this is, it's sad to see.
Yeah, and Elite has a particular pace to it as well, which is slow. Is the answer. Everything takes a while because it's based on it. The fact that you have faster than light travel hasn't sped things up very much.
I mean, that's still not fast.
No. So the likes of, I said, the taxi service, so it's got Apex, like interstellar travel or something it's called, and so you can get shuttles to locations. So obviously, get out on your ship, you can pick up a mission, and you can basically be ferried pretty close to it if there's a settlement or something nearby, and you can ferry yourself about that way, which costs credits in game and all that. And the way that works is that you book the shuttle, it arrives eventually, you get the elevator down to it, you get in it, and it flies you there. Exactly the same way as if you did it, but the NPC pilot is doing it for you. and that's very much. And that sounds crazy and ridiculous to everyone else, because everyone else, exactly as Ben said, fast travel, perfect. It just take you to the place you want to go, and that's not how Elite works. It very much follows that kind of. It's as close to real as anything set in the 3300s can be at the moment.
Right.
So if you want to do anything, you have to go to that place, and it takes time to do that. If you jump into a system and the planet you need to go to is, 50,000 light seconds away from the star. You have to travel there.
Yeah.
And then you have to land, and then you have to, do all the stuff that you want to do there, and then you have to leave the planet, you have to escape its gravity, then you can jump back to where you were going in the first place, where you got your mission, and then you have to fly back to that state. So everything in the game takes a lot of time, and that's part of the beauty of it, and part of why everyone gets really angry when the thing that you go to do doesn't quite work properly.
I just think of
You run into a crash or a bug, or you
I
find
agree.
that because there's no way that the first person shooting in Elite Dangerous was going to be anywhere close to like a Destiny or something like that. It's not that quality.
Right.
It's not that level. It's functional. It's fine, but it's not anything particularly special, and that's the kind of weirdness of it, because Odyssey is in itself a full game that they've developed. Essentially all of that stuff that you can do would constitute, I don't know, something equivalent to a Mass Effect game minus the story. Which would be the only thing they have to add, but
what made them chase that dream then? Because you referenced Star Citizen, but like they shouldn't hold themselves to that standard, because it's
No.
not even out. Surely, like, was this a Kickstarter stretch goal or something? Was it like
no, because the Kickstarter, as far as I haven't actually looked at it specifically, but the Kickstarter was to make another Elite Dangerous game, and compared to the old ones, the original kind of version of Elite Dangerous that launched is pretty much that. It's a ship-based simulation of the Milky Way, but it was in 3D, and it had this huge simulation that they'd never managed to achieve before, for obvious reasons. And that's and that was where it started. And I think the reason they keep chasing this dream is because, like so many people, they are big sci-fi nerds who like all that stuff, and that's why you keep ending out in that place.
Just to sort of bring in another kind of equivalent to it. I don't know if you've come across much of EVE Online, Adam.
I have read plenty of stories about EVE Online.
I think that's everyone's.
Yeah.
Well, like, EVE Online came out in the early 2000s, 2003, 4, 5, somewhere around then. And then CCP, who have continuously developed EVE Online and brought out tons and tons of expansions for it, and EVE Online seems to follow that sort of like set MMO sort of strategy, that they have a big sort of like content drop every X amount of years, and things then just get updated in between. But CCP also developed a game called Dust 500 or something. It was an odd number anyway, and it was meant to be this like tied in first person shooter. So it was like a team deathmatch style kind of game with first person shooting, where factions battled each other. You fought for various different corporations, and that then had an effect in the game of like EVE Online, and it died very, very quickly. It was dropped very, very quickly. CCP, and that must have come out maybe like 10 years later, early 2010s, 13, 14, something like that.
I never knew that they did that.
And they then announced that they were working on another first-person shooter game, and I don't know whether that was a similar sort of thing as Dust, or whether they went, right, we just want to make this like completely separate co-op shooter. It's just set in the universe. We've got all of this lore and all of this story and stuff, and we can just sort of make kind of whatever games we want. And I think it's part of Frontier. It's just like flexing a little bit, isn't it? It's like, we've done this for so long. What does everyone kind of want to do next? And they're like, we'd love to do a first-person shooter style thing. They go, cool. Start storyboarding it, or start putting down all of your notes. Let's brainstorm it and get it sorted and see if that goes anywhere.
Yeah. It's strange, because one of the first things that you think of when you get over I'm in this big ship and all these space stations and I'm out in space and doing all this stuff, is the first thing you think is, I'd like to get out and look at the ship.
Or the station, or like,
and it doesn't necessarily follow that you have to add the shooter element to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part I was. Yeah.
But at the same time, Elite Dangerous, having Dangerous in the title, does lend itself to that because it's essentially a first-person shooter in the sense that it's just spaceship based because that's what the combat is.
Yeah, tough fighting. Yeah.
You know, you are first person in the sense that you are the pilot in the ship. If you look down using the free look in the camera, you can see the controls. You can see kind of bits of the cockpit around you. You know, and that's what you're doing, and that way, it's a natural extension of that in that way. But as I said, you know, they've essentially created what is, for all intents and purposes, like a whole game in and of itself.
Yeah.
And they can't really just bin it off like Eve did, or like Star Citizen even did with their, like, was it Squadrons or something, whatever that was called. That get binned off, didn't it, at one point?
I mean,
the Star Wars.
Kid, you mean
because they were creating a first-person shooter.
He's done with Star Citizen. Also had a thing called Squadrons that was going to do this essentially the same thing, and was a fork of possibly a different game mode. Who knows? None of it exists.
Yeah, that is exactly the tone I talk about Star Citizen. Is who knows? That none of it is real. Yeah.
Give us £5,000 for a ship though.
Oh, but a ship only you will be able to ever have in a game that will never exist.
It's like NFTs, isn't it? Really,
true.
It's like an NFT at this point.
Well, I mean, it's true though. Like, you give us £5,000, no one's ever gonna have this ship that we sold you because no one's gonna ever have this ship.
Yeah. The only difference so far is the market for Star Citizen hasn't crashed yet. Amazingly.
It turns out that new tech bro grifts aren't as good as old school grifts.
Yeah. I just continuously promise to make a game, and I mean, we could have a whole podcast separate again about Star Citizen itself.
Yeah, I mean,
and that whole story. I give it very kind of short shrift, but there is an interesting story to that Alfred, who everyone here knows, gives a wee bit more of the benefit of the doubt analysis than I do.
Alfred, you're wrong.
Yeah, not in the sense that you would ever invest any money in it, but in the sense that it's not. I jokingly call it a pyramid scheme.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not even a pyramid scheme because pyramid schemes only work because you get the benefit if you hoodwink the people below you. This is just grifting.
Yeah,
this is old school. It's not even a Ponzi scheme. Like, it's not even the thing that we think is the way people get hoodwinked. It's just give us money.
Yeah.
And then you're like, how come you haven't given me the thing? It's like, because I'm gonna make it better, but I'll need some more money.
I paid 20 grand for SS Boatface, Mickey Space Queen.
Yeah.
I want to fly that ship and start it.
So Alfred has a very benefit of the doubt, kind of positive outlook in that comes from the why chase the dream. But for Star Citizen developers, the dream isn't just creating the vision of the game that they have, it's the developing the technology. So his kind of surmisation of it is that it was not intentionally a scam of give us more money and we'll make a game. It's that every time they get so far, some new technology comes up or some new idea appears and they go, perfect, bin all that we've worked the last 3 years on.
I mean,
we're going to remake this system this way because this will be the best way, and that cycle just repeats and repeats.
Except
and repeats.
we know, like, we saw Duke Nukem Forever. We saw games do this, and they came out, but also. Even if you are doing this, you're terrible at your job because you've seen that no game can come out well by continuously cycling and scrapping and cycling and scrapping. So either you are grifting people or you're an idiot and you're grifting people by accident.
I don't know, but look at the guy who literally went to space like yesterday or something, Jeff Bezos. Amazon was basically an idea that he had that he sold to people. And he was like,
but that's not actually. So Amazon was developed in the garage, except he also had a lot of money.
No, I know. I'm saying
Yeah,
he
but
was like, this is a concept. I'm gonna be in debt for like the next 10 years.
Except he wasn't,
Loan
because
me
he didn't.
money.
Because he didn't borrow any of the money on himself, and the only reason he had the capital was because he had rich people on hand.
I know, but
Amazon
was not
I get what you're saying.
Company.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that,
Except I know what you're saying, but it's like, this is the proof of concept. Maybe this will be
no, but
basically, it's a video game. They're not going to sell the engine or the concept or the assets, even for like 10 quid afterwards, because technology will improve so far.
Also, if they were,
everything, as Adam said, everything that they had then is thrown out the window. It makes no sense.
It's even worse, because like, if you're Crytek, you blow all your money on an engine and then you sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But it turns out they've literally admitted that new tech has come along and they've thrown their own shit out and bought the new tech multiple times. So there's no way that they're going to make profit outside of the game, and the game is already a huge loss leader.
There's not even any code anyone would buy at this point.
I mean, I don't know about them.
I think they should just sell codes to Elite Dangerous.
I mean, they might as well. But I mean, it would be better for everyone if they did that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about the ins and outs of how Star Citizen is made.
I think we can all agree.
Made. That's kind of Alfred's kind of more positive spin on the whole thing, whereas I'm very much a cynic in regards to that.
Let's pause for a moment, and let's crack open some more beers. Or as Lucy and I have done, drink the beers that we've started to crack and talk about them. And then, Adam, we'll return back to you for sort of, I guess, kind of like final rundown of Odyssey and wrap it up, and we'll move on to...
I'll try to keep it brief.
Cool.
No problem.
No, I genuinely want to have a Adam on for a Star Citizen.
That's it. We'll do it. Yeah.
So
I would be happy to talk at length about the thing I don't know a lot about, but if we... I have do feelings. The research.
I have feelings. That's how the internet works. I'm a white man with feelings. I must be heard.
If we do a Star Citizen special, I'll do a deep dive. Hey, I'm unemployed and I'm a fucking researcher. I'll find some facts.
Your next PhD will be on Star Citizen.
That would be amazing. Right, beers. Lucy, what have you cracked? What are you drinking currently?
Oh, I'm going to crack another one because I actually wanted to talk about this. This other one is a Malt Garden. Splendid Thought. You had Malt Garden the other day, didn't you, Ben?
Yes.
Very good.
It was very nice,
yeah. Malt Garden's always good. This is back on my New York trail.
Oh. Here we go with Equilibrium.
Equilibrium. And it's called Superfractal.
Oh.
So I've had the Fractal. This is the Superfractal. And it's a tipper. It's 10%.
Nice.
It's a pint. So that's dangerous.
An American pint.
Yeah, which is... How much is that in mils? Is it smaller than that? It's smaller than
I think an American pint is half a litre, right? Is that what we worked out? 500 ml?
500 ml. Oh, okay.
Wait, yeah, what's 440 is a UK pint?
No, 5... Arbor will tell me. 568.
Yeah, sorry, it's the other way around. I know one's basically half a litre and the other is more, and I never remember which one.
Yes, America sucks. But it's got really pretty can art. It's got
the controversial takes are coming out in this podcast. The Star Citizen scam. America sucks.
Yeah, it's got some nice what do you call these things? Microscopes, and it's a very pretty can. Yeah. I don't think there's any flavour text, so.
Okay.
Yeah, just a triple India Pale Ale.
Nice.
10%.
Cool. I see Adel sort of staring and describing things. I will jump in quickly because I have cracked mine. I'm drinking another Arbor. It is Midnight Blue, which is a stout at 5.8%. Another beer that I've had before. But this just tells me full-bodied stout with flavours of dark fruit, molasses, and roasted malts. That's it. Thanks, Arbor. Cool. I'll come back to that in a moment. Adel, what are you opening?
I've got something from Little Critters Brewing Company.
Oh, nice.
Which I've never had anything from them. They're from Sheffield. And literally the corner store this feeds entirely into Luce's theory about Bristol, but the corner store closest to me, the place where like I'm going to the park and I can get 5 like tins of Stella because it's just going to be in the sun and drinking in the park. That place, the place I usually go for just random beer, they've started carrying random craft beers. They carry the Siren, which I had earlier. They do Wiper and True, always have. They do Arbor, but now they've got Buxton and they've got Little Critters and a couple other ones. So craft brew I've never seen before. Random corner store.
They've been going since 2012.
I've seen them. I've seen them more and more down here in Bristol, but in like bottles and books, in bottle shops rather than.
Oh, so I've definitely seen them. I've just never noticed them. Ooh.
Possibly. I mean, they've maybe only been in there this year.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't be surprised that because they also, if they just came to bottles and books this year, and they just showed up at this Galleys. Galleys is the old name. The place down the road. It doesn't matter. It makes sense that like maybe they've just pushed from Sheffield to Bristol. But it is a Imperial Espresso Stout.
Oh.
A mild 8.2%. It is the King Crow. Which look at Mr. Crow. How could you not have bought this beer?
Yeah. Does he have a knife as well? Buy this beer.
He does. He doesn't. But I do have a soft spot for Corvids. I said Corvids. It's no longer good. It used to be great. Smartest type of birds, Corvids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean crows, ravens.
Yeah, I was thinking,
that family. Yeah.
Oh,
so they're all Corvids.
Family. I thought that was a type of bird. Yeah, because I was like, I thought crows were really smart.
Yeah, so crows and ravens are the same
you
family.
You weren't wrong.
Yeah, you weren't wrong. It's just there's no corvid bird. It's like anyway. Doesn't matter. Just gonna pour.
You pour, Lucy. We'll go. Let's go back to New York for a moment.
Very pretty beer.
It is.
Very orangey. Yeah, I think a few weeks ago I compared like the aroma to like some of those very what do you call it, like juice bomby Cloudwater beers that were.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, it smells gorgeous, like those tropical notes. Very, very sweet on the nose as well. Sweet and malty. That's good. That's real good. It's very smooth, as we've talked about, last few weeks. And beyond, like that water quality is just nuts. It's just so soft and drinkable. It doesn't taste like 10%, so I may be very silent or very loud. Depending on how it goes the second half of this podcast, but
it does look lovely.
It is, and it tastes lovely. It's got a real softness, real pillowiness. It still has those like tropical fruit flavors. It's got like those piney and cedar like notes that are just pairing that sweetness back. It's not. You smell it and you think, oh, this might be too sweet. This might be too malty, but it's not that at all. It's just incredible how they, get you in with that kind of smell, entice you with that kind of smell, and then it still managed to like have that kind of journey in the taste where it's like sweetness, pininess at the end, a little bit of bitterness, just that soft water quality all the way through. This is good. I can't remember how much I like the fractal, but I think if it says fractal on the can, just pick it up. Very good. it's dangerous though. Like 10%, and I mean,
dangerous.
yeah, elite dangerous. But how I was saying with the Brew York beer, how it's like, oh, it doesn't taste exactly like 14%. You can tell it's you can still tell it's an imperial strength beer. This, I think, it has the same warmness from the alcohol as I was talking about, like the Wonder
Beyond.
Yeah, beer that I had earlier. But if you said to someone, oh, this is a 7% beer, it's a bit malty, a bit sweeter, you could trick them.
Yeah.
Get them very drunk. It'd be quite funny.
I mean, don't do that to people, but
yeah, don't do that.
Only check yourself. Also, do not ask them for several £1,000s to buy a ship.
yeah.
One that may or may not exist.
Team face.
Yeah. Right, Arbor.
Sorry, while Ben sips, I just realized NFTs are basically paying for a token that's stapled to the thing that you're pretending you're buying.
Yes.
So actually, you can sell an NFT to a Star Citizen ship because you're really just buying the token anyway, so it doesn't matter that the ship doesn't exist.
That's
it's
true.
Like the ultimate NFT-able thing.
Oh no, what have we done? What have we unleashed on the internet now? Now that we've combined these two things.
I'll buy an Among Us looking McNuggets for like 50k.
Yeah.
That's physical goods.
And I'm sure at some point you can buy Among Us looking McNugget that can just be a cosmetic item to hang in the cockpit of your Star Citizen ship, which doesn't actually then exist.
Yeah. Oh, Ben. Mwah.
So it's just markets on markets on markets.
Cosmetic suit or something, and you went the extra mile, and I appreciate it.
Oh, markets for days. Right.
I wish I had money away. Oh my god.
NFT stands for not fucking tangible, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. This beer, I won't linger on it. It's exactly as they say: dark fruit, molasses, roasted malts. I'm getting all of those things. A little bit of blueberry. The molasses is a little bit more. It's a bit more sort of leathery than kind of licorice on the scale of kind of like molasses. Got the roasted.
Sorry, Ben. I missed which brewery that was.
Oh, it's Arbor again.
Arbor again. Okay.
Midnight Blue.
Yes, which I don't think I've actually had.
Okay.
So I was really...
It's another core beer for them.
Yeah, I think I know I've seen it, but like I was trying to think, have I actually had it, or is it usually when I'm like good old Arbor, I think like Lucy said, like the single hop, these like really bursty, flavorful things, and so I think I've seen it over and over and be like, oh, yes. I should really try their stout, and then either they're like really interesting stouts that are like it's almost like their reputation precedes them in a bad way for me, because I know them so being very good at the things that don't feed into good stout, and I just again, I'm not avoiding it, I just keep not quite getting there with it.
Well, I would say it's a very sort of standard stout. Yes, it has those extra sort of flavors in them, but it's not doing anything big. It's not a big sort of punchy kind of stout. It's got a lovely sort of more syrupy, almost as you were talking about with the stout you had earlier, Lucy. Who was that by?
Oh, Lucy.
Brew York. Brew York. It has a little bit more of an oily kind of quality to it, so it's a little bit more full-bodied, and the flavour is there and is quite nice. But it's just kind of like, again, here are the flavours. This is what we're doing, and that's it. You're not going to get very much more from it, and you know exactly when you read on the back of an Arbor, they tell you exactly what you're going to get from them, which is great, which is fine, and it's a very nice stout to drink on a very warm day. It sits very kind of nicely this evening.
And you know what, like Arbor up in Marks and Spencer's most of the time, I'll always pick up the Cafe Creme.
Yes,
because it is very nice, and you know what? When you're short of beers, you can't go wrong with another.
Absolutely.
Can't go wrong.
Definitely. Adel, we'll jump back to you then for the little critters.
Yes, Little Critters King Crow Imperial Espresso Stout.
Mm.
So the first thing I will say is it poured really well. Kind of a minimal head. It feels like it's got decent lacing, but honestly, I thought at 8% it would be a little more clingy, a little more creamy looking, a little thicker head. But that's, I mean, just like my gut on Imperial Stouts. Its nose is. There's something almost clinical in it. Like it's got this roasted coffee base layer, but there's something else there that's cutting above it. It's really like hard to tell what that is, but like I said, it's almost clinical. It's like there's a smell that I can't quite place that you get in like a vet's or a doctor's office or a place that's freshly cleaned.
Herbal kind of.
Coriander.
Yeah. Yeah, it might actually just be like a specific scent that's I'm associating with those spices because they've been cleaned with it. And again, doesn't smell like cleaning fluid.
Yeah.
Right, but it's just there's something about it that just reminds me of that situation.
I like smell like licorice.
Oh no, it's not anisey at all.
Yeah, that's what I usually get because I'm not a massive fan of licorice. It reminds me of medicinal, like kind of.
Yeah, so this is
definitely
not medicinal in the sense of medicine. This is like clinical in the sense of places that are often cleaned a bunch. So almost like cleaning solution, but again, not that strong. Ugh.
Grapefruit,
there's something in there.
Grapefruit. All cleaning fluids, just grapefruit flavors.
Yeah, grapefruit. Yeah. I definitely still have some barley wine on the tongue. I can feel those notes sort of coming in, and they're fighting with this coffee. So yeah, I think it's an espresso stout. Yeah, it is. So it's lighter. It's 8.2%, but actually the alcohol is coming through a lot more, like the sweetness from the alcohol.
Okay. Yeah.
This tastes a bit more sickly sweet alcohol-y, which goes really well with quite so the coffee taste is bitter and kind of burnt, but it's also sort of a step lower than you would think for an espresso stout. So you're getting like a rounded malty, not biscuity malty, but just like some malty taste that's got some burnt coffee underneath. That coffee is very burnt. And there's a sweetness sort of in the middle, if that makes sense. So it's kind of malt, sweet, burnt, which is a really good balance, I think, because the sweet is making sure the burnt isn't off-putting, but this is burnt coffee. There's like not a lot of toffee. There's no caramelly notes in this like stout. It's just very burnt forward, but because it's burnt forward, but all those notes are like a step below, it's again not overwhelming the other things. The other things actually help rounding it out. It tastes stronger in the sense of, again, that sickly sweetness. It feels more viscous. I would actually say the two beers are probably more similar than you think in carbonation.
Okay.
In the sense of but that's mostly because the barley wine was sort of way less carbonated than I would have thought. This is kind of a little more carbonated. Like, I wish I could show you that it's still bubbling in a way that you don't normally see in a stout. Usually it's sort of, you look at it and it's like, oh yeah, there's a head. And this I'm like watching bubbles arise. So it's a little more effervescent than I'm used to. And I think that's helping with the sweetness coming out. I think the bubbles are helping bring the sweetness of the alcohol out and again, rounding out that really burnt forward flavor. But it all makes it very easy to drink.
Okay. Sounds like there's a lot going on.
So yeah, I think there's like 2 or 3 things going on. My biggest complaint, I think, is that they don't they understay their welcome. So what ends up lasting is that sort of more sickly sweetness, just because that's just the alcohol mostly, so it's not going to fade as fast, and the rest of the flavors kind of fade a little quicker. So you have this slightly more malty finish. The burnt fades quick, but all the interesting things are sort of well balanced in the beginning, and then they all kind of leave, and you're left with a, like I said, a sweet kind of malty finish, and that's like still about 30, but it's not the interesting part of the flavor.
Yeah.
So it's like disappointing that way, because it's like, oh, this is so well balanced. I wonder how it will. Oh, it all just goes away. But I'm also the guy who's like, I love the taste curve. I love when things take their turns, and this is just not. It's clearly a beer that's not designed to do that. It's like a beer designed to be like, here's our really cool, well balanced taste. Here's our finish.
I think that's one of the best ways of describing a beer. It's like, yes, you're taking me on that journey, but I prefer this part of the journey. And you just skipped over Disneyland, and now we're on the drive back home. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a brilliant way of surmising that. You know.
We arrived, did the circle around the car park, and gone.
Yeah.
There
you can see it through the window.
Yeah, because I feel that with so many beers, and I've just never been able to put in that such a succinct way and just perfectly encapsulates my feeling about the beer. So,
nice.
Well done, sir. It's almost as good as your IPAness.
I'd like to think of it as our IPAness. You know, the anus we share.
The collective tanked up IPAness.
I guess we could call it a weepianus.
Oh, let's move on. We'll jump back in.
Speaking of lingering finishes,
Adam.
You
so
saying I've overstayed my welcome? I knew this would happen.
Not at all.
Dear.
But be concise now. In rounding out all of your chat about Elite Dangerous Odyssey. Elite Dangerous and Elite Dangerous Odyssey.
Yeah.
You'll have to come on
Concise,
again
I
to
don't
talk
know.
more about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep playing more about it, because I do want to write something down about it, even though I've encountered this difficulty in trying to work out the right kind of angle to take on it, because and I talked about it, I don't want to give it too much stick, because these are things that a lot of them kind of bugs and things, they will iron out a lot of the problems just over the next few months, and however long it happens to take. Because they do continue to develop on the game, they are going to fix all that. So the fact that it's a bit rough now doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be worth playing a little bit further down the line. But also, I don't want to let my kind of fondness for them let me give them too much slack, that I don't give them the push they need to keep improving it, because it still needs a wee bit of that. No, a bit more. Another 5 minutes in the oven. It's in that kind of place. It's like, you could eat it now, but it'll be better if you put it back in for another 5 minutes, just to give it that nice crisp finish.
What we call that, Adam, is a measured approach, which not a lot of gamers have.
Yeah,
Like,
which is what the Steam
this way.
reviews. What's the word I'm looking for?
Suck?
Lack.
Yes.
Yeah, the Steam reviews don't have that. That doesn't exist in those. Yeah, exactly. And it turned out to be one of the things that Odyssey, again, going back to comparing it with Star Citizen, is Odyssey brings out in Elite some of the kind of worst comparisons to Star Citizen's experience. And highlighting a very clear distinction between the two, because Elite is, as we've talked about, this massive, Milky Way level thing. But when you click the button to disembark your ship, your character goes, and then the screen fades to black, and then it fades back in, and you're outside the ship.
Right.
Where Star Citizen,
Yeah.
and it has that very disjointed feel. So if you're in a station, you're outside the ship in the kind of hangar bay. Your ship's there. You can look at it, and then you walk up. You get in the elevator. That's another wee loading screen.
Yeah.
The doors open, and you're in the area where you can go buy some stuff or pick up some missions or go to the kind of.
It's like
terminal
playing
thing.
a Resident Evil game where there's a loading screen every door you walk in.
It feels very disjointed, because games spend a lot of time now, in particular, and especially like on the cusp of the SSDs and the PS5
Yeah.
and all that, we're trying to
sure.
escape all that. The future of games is that seamless transition where if there is a loading screen, it loads like that, and you miss
Or
it.
they mask it. They mask that
Yeah.
loading screen.
They-
Even
yeah.
like an elevator in like Mass Effect. or
Yeah.
something.
Which is what that is. That is masking it. It's a very good in-universe way of doing that, but I also know it's doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas
yeah.
we're trying to escape that kind of thing, and one of the things that Star Citizen does do very well, even in its kind of extremely buggy alpha state that it's in, is you can, when you want to leave the ship, you get up and you can walk around inside the ship. There's lockers to put things in, and then you can go out outside the ship that way and all that. It's this much more seamless kind of transition between all those things.
Yeah, but like Warframe, except Warframe doesn't have the space like the flying is instantaneous. You go to a place, but then you walk around on your ship, and then you drop ship, and then hit the loading screen to drop down. I mean, the thing here is like the people want the every game.
Yeah.
They want Star Wars Squadrons plus the Old Republic.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic plus Star Wars the Old Republic, the MMO.
Yeah.
And they also want it all to look like whatever the last Star Wars lightsaber game was when you're on a planet.
Fallen Order.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up Warframe because like that seems like a very good analog as well. But I cannot speak to that game.
Yeah,
I fucking love Warframe. I wish I had people to play it with.
I haven't
But it's
played it myself.
and they've put in some like shippy combat-y things. They've put in some more multiplayer things, and they're like doing the same thing that Elite's doing, just from the other direction, right?
Yeah, they're
like
slowly building out the way into the other stuff. Yeah.
And I think the way that because so from day one they had a ship that you were on that you could walk around, and then as you leveled up, you unlocked parts of the ship. You had a sense of when I'm in space, I'm in this place.
Yeah.
And then, but almost all your missions are, well, no, all your actual game actions, like outside of upgrading, are push a button, loading screen, go to a new place.
Yeah.
This is my fight movement. But like they get away with not having space battles and stuff because they gave you a space hub that is your ship, right? Like, while Elite sort of, there is no hub except travel.
Yeah.
Where you are in.
They give you a good sense of being in the ship, like before Odyssey comes along, but it's very difficult really to get a sense of the scale and the size of them until
you can move.
Yeah, until you can get out of it and look at it and stand next to it on a planet and go, fucking hell, it's absolutely huge. And the differences between the ships, and you get a little bit of a sense of that from obviously encountering the other ships in space, and you're fighting them and you're flying past them and all the rest of it. You get a bit of a sense of it, and seeing it, but there's no way of doing that gives you that same kind of visceral reaction as standing underneath it and going, okay, so this is what I fly about in. Okay.
So Adam, as a massive fan of the game, is that what you wanted, or do you think it's like you'd rather see this developer like stick with what they know and maybe even release a new game, or do you want to see them continue along this path, give them the birth to experiment, even if it goes wrong? Is this what you wanted? Like, a lot of the other people, fans and everything, obviously that's what they wanted and they're voicing their opinion, but
I think it is, but it feels a little too thin again, and that is one of the problems that crops up with this thing, is because there is so much to the game. They add a lot when they do these things, and I think I would have preferred them not to bother with the shooting element, and deal with purely, which makes having walking about on planets difficult without having that, because combat is such an integral element of what makes Elite what it is. But you could have started...
The fact that it's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. You could have started with getting out of the ship in the stations walking around the hangar,
Yeah, so that was
going
what I
into
was
the
thinking.
stations to pick up the missions and all that, and building that into a really full and engaging experience that's just a little add-on to what comes before, and then branch that out into, and now you can walk on planets, and now you can shoot at one another, and now build it that way. Whereas I think they've gone for, again, probably a bit of the pressure of this is a paid expansion. It has to have enough stuff in it.
Yeah.
To be interesting to people and to hopefully bring more people into playing the game and all the rest of it, and to market well. So it has to have being on the planets and doing the shooting, because explaining to players, on the planet you can get out of your ship into your vehicle, your SRV, and drive that about, but you can't get out of that. Why? Because we haven't added that yet. Because we haven't built the shooting stuff for it yet. But you can get out of your ship and walk around it at the station, but not on the planet. And there's that, and I can see why they end out in the place that they do, with all of these competing expectations and pulls on what they want to achieve. That they end out in this. Well, this is as thin as we can stretch, so this is going to be how it goes.
It sounds like massive feature creep, not by the hands of the community asking for that stuff necessarily, but as you say, what the developers want to achieve. Yeah. But that seems like very long-term plans rather than just one expansion.
Yeah,
that adds first-person shooting and everything else like that, and so many different economies and systems. Seems like they could have added one thing. Maybe not for free. Maybe if people paid for that, and I think the community may have been responsive to that.
Pay for it in £5 chunks instead of a £40 or whatever.
Yeah, it seems misjudged.
Yeah, and I think this is what feeds into the frustration, is adding this in the way they have. Players see the gaps where they want the extra thing that makes the game feel more full to them. So a good example of that is being in the stations. I don't want to just be able to be outside the ship or inside the ship. I want to walk through my ship and get out of it as part of the experience, because I don't load into my ship and then go, I'm leaving the station, and load outside the station. I physically fly my ship out of the station through the letterbox slot, and I physically fly my ship into land. And that's where I think that's where a lot of the frustration feeds in, because every single Elite Dangerous player has their thing that they prefer, and so you come up against these limitations of what they've added, and you can see the gaps where, well, this is the bit that I want you to fill. I want that to feel more streamlined. I want that to feel like a continuous experience, and that is where you get frustrated, because why did you spend all this time adding in alien plants to these planets that I'll never visit? Instead of doing this thing that I like, because that's what I do in the game, even though thousands of other players love the fact that there's all this exobiology in and barely set foot in the station as it is, never mind anything else. And that's again where the comparison with Star Citizen comes in, because they have that very unified experience on that level, but they have, in the alpha at least, they have a couple of planets and one star system. And I think there's the plan for the game when it eventually releases is that there'll be a few star systems with quite a few planets in them, but nothing on the scale that Odyssey, the elements of Odyssey have these problems, but it's bolted onto this massive game that still works. In that way, and in that regard, Odyssey, as far as I can tell, hasn't introduced very many problems into the rest of the game, in terms of adding this system's broken, this system over here. This gameplay element doesn't work because it's interfering with that thing over there.
Which is honestly what I thought with the negative backlash. Was it like Warcraft 3 that they re-released, and it's like they couldn't, legacy players couldn't go back to how they used to play, and it was like this is usurped and taken over, and retconned everything else.
Because they get rid of the actual yeah, because they get rid of the actual thing that used to be there, didn't they? And
Yeah.
kind of overlaid it with the new version of it. Yeah.
Whereas this is different. It's like these are optional, quote unquote optional.
Yeah, because if you don't buy Odyssey, you can still play everything outside of it. You can still play all the Horizons elements and all of the stuff that came before. In that way, it is in a literal sense an expansion of the game. It's an expansion of the gameplay options that you have available to you, because you could spend another 5,000 hours playing this game and not touch a single element of Odyssey if you wanted. If it's not the sort of thing that drew you in, that you end out, because this is why I end out playing like 3 weeks solid of Elite and doing very little else and losing a lot of sleep, is because it draws you into this constant, oh, I want to do this thing, or I'll just do that, or I want to go buy this ship, but I need to make some more money, so I'll do a mining run, and then a mining run turns into 5 mining runs, and each mining run takes all evening, sometimes longer than that, depending on how big my ship is and all this sort of stuff. And you end out in it. Oh, and while I'm here, I'm pick up some missions. So now I need to mine a specific thing that I don't come across as often. But if I'm doing lots of mining runs, I'll come across enough of it eventually. So I'll just keep doing that, and then there's 5 more of these missions. This will be fine. It'll be fine. And then you end out in it. And you end out in a spiral of suddenly I've got all this stuff that I'm doing, and I'm doing all this, and you go, what was I making money for again? Why did I start these mining runs? I don't want to do that anymore. I've decided I'm going to do this other thing. And then your friend joins you and he goes, let's go over this place and do some, pirate hunting or combat missions, or there's a community goals that they add into the game every week and so on that give players the entire community goals to complete and things like that. And you end out in this huge spiral of stuff. And I've played a lot of the game without any of this other stuff, and you could still continue doing that even if you buy it and never touch it. You have to kind of seek it out in that regard, just as you do every element of the game. Because there's plenty of players who have never done any mining. Yeah. I've done loads of it, but there's plenty of players that have never done it. There's plenty of players that hate the combat. They just like trucking about. Their interest is in getting as much cargo into their ship as possible and taking it to the next system or the next 10, and they get their satisfaction out of coming up with very profitable runs where they take tea from this system here over to that system where they sell it at a profit, and then when they've done that, they then buy microprocessors from that system, and then they take it to this system over here, and you end out with this run where they make loads and loads of money just going. And you can start I bought 2 of this, I've sold them, and all the way around to I've bought 900 of these and taken it to here. And people play the game in that regard and don't do combat and do the other stuff, and some people just play the missions, and there's all these things that come into it in that way.
It's super interesting that it has that variety to it as well, that it allows people to kind of delve into it. It's not, hey, you've got to do a little bit of this, and you've got to do a little bit of this, and you've got to do a little bit of this. It is kind of we have this system, and you can kind of play your own way around it. We have all of the things here for you. Just do what you want, essentially, within the confines of the system that we have. But
they have quite literally a galaxy's worth of options. And there is nothing else like it in that regard. There's nothing else that does anything close to it. Even Star Citizen, that has so many similarities, doesn't come close. It's nowhere close to the level of this. It's a bit more detailed within and handcrafted within the systems that it's got, because on this scale, obviously a lot of the procedural generation and things that have to go into it. But again, as much as using hard sci-fi creates problems, it also solves a lot of problems, because you don't need to worry about making interesting stuff. Because if you feed realistic astronomical data into it, interesting stuff happens. There's black holes, there's neutron stars, there's nebula, there's systems with 2 stars orbiting one another. There's systems with interesting planets. There's systems with all sorts of colors on them. There's there's systems that you can go to where the orbital period of one of the planets or one of the moons is something like 1 minute 20 seconds, and so you can sit in that system and watch it go wee round and round the planet it's next to.
Have you played the Outer Wilds? I think you'd love that game.
I have not. That's the RPG that's sort of.
No, that's the Outer World.
Oh God, I always get them mixed up.
I do too. I actually was like, I know he's wrong because I was gonna say that one. If I was gonna say that one, it's the other one.
Yeah.
I think you'd love the Outer Wilds. It's very condensed, kind of, like very.
Yeah.
Everything you've talked about with Elite Dangerous, like the fact that it's based on the story, quote unquote story, like information based on this old alien race and stuff like that. That is the Outer Wilds, and just like the physics system around it based on like, well, not real world, because if this is Elite Dangerous is literally an ersatz version of like the Milky Way.
Yeah.
This is a fictional world, but it has that kind of physics simulation of like gravity, and I think you'd love that game.
Well,
and you don't need to spend 1,000 hours completing it. Try it out.
Does it come with different ships? How much are they?
Just the same ship, the same ship, but it's obviously not to the extent of like and the depth as Elite Dangerous, but it sounds like something you might dig. I think you will really like it.
I think I will. I need to pick it up. For Elite, I think that is part of. That's kind of the summary of it. It is so broad, and that necessitates in some places it's not as deep as it should be.
Sure.
Yeah.
And some of the things just don't have that connection that they should have. But also, because I can see those places where they can add to it still, and they can keep going, I want to see them go there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's just unfortunate that it's gonna take another 25 years at the current rate for it to be finished.
And by that time, someone might have actually got out to about 50% of into the galaxy or something, into the Milky Way.
No, they won't. 50% of the galaxy is so big.
No.
I mean, it's a bit like No Man's Sky, and No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, all these, like, there's a competition of, like, sci-fi world size that No Man's Sky gets you into the core via cheats, essentially, right? Like, what makes Elite Dangerous really interesting is they have faster than light travel, but not by much, and so it's still slow. While No Man's Sky is basically, once you understand the mechanics of the game, it's gonna funnel you towards the center, which is really odd to me because they've procedurally generated a huge universe that they basically don't want you in. But that's another story. I mean, last question for you, Adam. Pie in the Sky, if you could just like click a button and be like, Elite Dangerous is now this. One feature can be as wide as you want. One, like, if it's first person shooting, but fine, that's fine. If it's like populated planets, that's fine too. I'm just curious what, like, you like this game, but you do ebb and flow with it. So I'm curious what would make you stop drifting and like just consume you in the way that like is dangerous.
I think probably the thing that it needs for me is to cover over that, to take that last step, is to have a bit more clear goals at the end. Because once you reach a certain point, where you've made a lot of credits and all the rest of it, and you're not scrambling to upgrade, you get to the point where you get to the kind of, either you buy the best ship for the thing that you're wanting, and you've got fleets of them. So I've got a combat ship, and I've got, like my cargo ship that I'll use for hauling about lots of stuff, and I've got my kind of all-purpose ships, and I've got a explorer ship that I've made so that my jump range between systems is as big as it can be, so I can travel the furthest. You know, and all that kind of thing. And so on that level, I don't think they've done enough adding, you know, more things for me to go, I want to get that. There's all these activities to do, and the reward you get for those activities is credits, reputation, influence for the faction if you like the faction. I mean, it doesn't matter if you like the faction. If you do missions for them, they get more influence, which influences the background simulation stuff. And materials, which you use for like engineering. And it's incredibly grindy game, even now with all the quality of life improvements and changes that have been made since when I started. It's a lot easier to get up to a good level than it was. It was very difficult before.
But then what do you do once you're there?
Yeah, there is a lot of grinding, and some of the grinds feel too long for what you get at the end of them. Like, there's some ships that I'll probably never get because they're locked behind faction reputation. You have to rank up to the right level with them. Because there's three big powers in the game. There's the Federation, the Empire, and the Alliance.
Really? Sorry. I mean, I know you like this game, but really, those are the three fucking sci-fi.
Exactly.
A 6-year-old could have told you those were going to be the three fucking sci-fi
things. It was the
things.
80s when they came up with those.
You are right. I forgot that this is technically in the same universe as before.
Yeah.
But they could have, like, put qualifiers. Even Star Wars called it
I know.
It's like, it's literally Star Wars track.
To a certain extent, yeah. But so the Federation and the Empire have ships.
English-speaking people.
That is probably like the most shallowest part of the game.
Yeah.
I'm being needless.
No, I was thinking the same
thing. A lot of beer.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I could have, pulled those three names out of my uneducated ass as well.
I think you mean your IP.
There's specific ships that you can get that are linked to both of those factions. You have to rank up with them, and the way you rank up is by doing missions for minor factions that are affiliated with one of the big ones. And so every time you do a mission, you get a little bit more, and then when you get to the end of that, you get a kind of rank up mission. And so you have to do that, and that takes a hell of a long time. And every time that someone finds a way that becomes a bit easier, they nerf it and take it out of the game. Because there's been stuff that it becomes like all anyone talks about that's linked to Elite that plays regularly, is that if you go to this system, become allied with this particular faction there, and go to this station, they will give you like reams and reams and reams of these very, very easy to complete missions that makes grinding out, getting your rank up so much quicker. Or other ones was, if you go to this place, you can sell this particular item for ridiculous amount of money and make loads of money very quickly and all that. And obviously they patch those things out every time they come across them when they work out how. Because obviously they see that as, well, there's some element of the simulation of the system that's not working correctly, that it's pushing it to go, why are they buying gold for 58 million fucking credits instead of the 50,000 that it normally goes for, and that sort of thing.
So what I'm getting from this conversation is that it's just a full-on life sim, and it's like people want this to go in like,
it's as close as any of us will ever come to living in the year 30,007 or whatever it was. 3,307.
I didn't picture this from, like, as you say, such a small developer, and like I didn't picture this from this game. It is just like I see why it's like not exactly The Sims, because it's like that'll keep going and going, but this is like sort of a microcosm of like where we see life going. It's like, as Adil says, like Star Trek. It's like living
Star Trek War.
It's fascinating.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place for us to finish out this week. I know there's tons more that we can get into.
Absolutely.
Well, I did warn you that that's what was happening.
Hey, that's fine.
I came on here to hear about Elite Dangerous.
And
I'm not leaving.
And we've
satisfied?
Exactly, that is the word. Yes.
Good.
I'm leaving very satisfied.
I hope everyone is satisfied. Good. I know, Adel, you put in the chat, the episode title has got to be Elite IPAness. I had written down Adam's Elite Takeover because it just expanded and expanded and expanded through the entire
I feel like
episode.
my title explains that Adam's initial topic took over.
It does very well. I alluded to it at the top of the show that I had a quite a heavy topic to get into, and maybe it's something that we will.
I'm glad you're actually getting to it. I was about to say, Ben, before you wrap up.
No, I can't. I'm gonna wrap up, but I will say.
He's definitely wrapping up.
I will say, everyone should drop on over either to Instagram or to Twitter and read through the account British Beer Girl, Siobhan. She is currently collecting lots of different stories of not just women, but people in the beer industry who have experienced very, very shitty work environments, whether it's been misogynistic, racist or toxic kind of things. And there's lots of breweries who are being called out. And we've just had, and again, I was going to discuss, we've just had all of the Quantic Dream lawsuit kind of thing come out and how shitty they are, and go into a whole thing about shitty workplaces. But we won't talk about that now. All I will say is go to British Beer Girl.
I'm so sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
No,
that's fine. We'll get to this. We'll get to this. It's an important topic, and we will come back to it at some point. But go to British Beer Girl on Instagram or on Twitter. Have a look and read through what people are saying. But also, she's now been hit with some lawsuits because people aren't very happy that they're being called out on their shit. So she currently also has a crowdfunder going, which has far exceeded so far the limit she's put on it for legal aid to help her to be able to actually fight all of this. So if anyone has some spare change, see what you can do to help out as well, because it's a very important thing for her to stick her head up and collate all of this and put herself out there. Absolutely. And it's come from, and I can't remember, and I couldn't find quickly the other account that preceded this from the US. Yes. So they had it.
Follow them. I just haven't seen.
Yes, yeah, I haven't been on Instagram for ages. But I went on the other day, saw that Siobhan had posted some more things, so read more into it, and I think it's the idea that the more people who are coming forward, the safer that people feel. So when people had shared their stories previously, they had said, "I don't want you to say who this is," whereas now they've come back and said, "I feel more comfortable and safer now hearing other people's experiences within the industry for you to put out who this person or who this company brewery that I worked for was to do this." So we've all of course, go.
Sorry, I just on Instagram you can also follow at Rat Magnet, RATMAGNET. Rat Magnet Brienne is the American Instagrammer who started posting the anonymous stories that really called out not just like craft brewers, but not just management, but also brewers, also toxic places to work, which people then ended up being like brew pubs,
bars,
some restaurants, etc. So it really became in the craft beer industry, start to finish, it's a toxic culture, and then there's people attesting to like, I did all this work, I did all this training, I was a brewer, people loved my beers, and I left the industry 5 years ago. These types of stories. And obviously we're not gonna cover all those things today, but I think between the two, so the difference is the Rat Magnet has a bunch of, on Instagram you can have like your stories like cataloged or whatever, archived. So she basically just has sexism's parts 1 through 10, so you can actually go through and I think it's really important if you consume craft beer to just take the time to find out what the industry is like, and so there's an American side one, and British Beer Girl is a British side one. And and again, like British Beer Girl also has like sexism in beer, a couple of those Instagram archives of her posts. I think it's really important because, like, we know beer here very well, but like I don't see the back room of any of these breweries.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen the literal back room of a bunch of these breweries, but we don't know how people are being treated, and it's very easy to assume.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
It's going well, but we do know that this is just. First of all, these countries aren't great. Re-sexism, beer especially. We usually like here on Tanked Up, we end up seeing a lot of bad ad campaigns, and sometimes they're indies, often they're not, and that I think has given shelter to indie companies where it's like, as long as their advertising isn't sexist, no one's going to call us out because Carlsberg's down the road being sexist as shit up front, and I'll probably behind the scenes. But like, look, you can make the best beer in the world. If I find out that you are a shithead, guess what? Your beer's never that great because the marginal difference isn't that big.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important that people are calling this out because we now have access to way more breweries just because of manufacturing, post, etc. Like, we just
you have choice.
I get to see more beers than ever can, and even if it's like, even if all the Bristol breweries turned out to be crap, this is not me saying they are, right? But I'm just saying, if that was the case, I could still have 2 new beers a week easily, plus whatever I do in my personal life for the podcast. Like, I could easily do that.
Yeah.
And so, if you love this beer and you find out they're crap, really think about why, like, how good it is.
And think,
and push back, right? Like
absolutely.
say, hey. So I think the thing I wanted to end, which is, if you find out these stories, one, maybe stop supporting that brewery, but two, which I think is more important, is if you stop supporting that brewery, you say to them, like, go the extra mile.
Tell
and
them,
say,
absolutely,
I like your beers, but I don't support the way you treat your brewers, staff, etc., clients, etc. Like, just say it. There's plenty of form letters on the internet as well if you want to if you're not sure how to say it, but also maybe we can write something up, because I actually think this is super important. Like,
absolutely is. Like, I'd be remiss as, you know, the person who's also of color but also a woman who likes craft beer, that this is one of the, like, most accepting in, you know, communities that I've been part of, you know, also down to you two. Obviously, Adam, you're fantastic as well.
I don't
but
know
it's
why
like
you got that impression.
but it's clear that we have still some room to grow, and, you know, like, I stick out like a sore thumb whichever tap room I go to, and that's the case in, you know, most places in real life. Like, Birmingham is very much a multicultural microcosm of the UK. It's not like that everywhere else.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I went to a tap room in, I don't know, Cambridge or, you know, Barcelona or you know, places that we talk about recently, it doesn't matter. And it's like, I think making those places accessible for people of all creeds, colours, races, sexualities, you know, that comes from the people who own that place. And if they're being shitty from the base, in, like, we see that in terms of, like, as you say, Carlsberg, then, you know, these very sexist ads and stuff like that. We've seen that in terms of, like, microbreweries, or quote unquote microbreweries. We've seen that at Brewdog. If that is not there on the base level, it's gonna transmit into the sort of clientele you have, the sort of beers that you make, the sort of image that you know, project. So it's like, yes, I fully agree with you, Ben. Putting your head above the parapet and stuff like this, it's commendable of her, and it's like, there's going to be so many industries with this quote unquote Me Too movement. There's going to be so many industries, and hopefully the beer is not going to be like, hopefully beer is not going to be the worst one that there is, because, you know, in terms of my experience, I've only found people who are like, you know, very accepting. Even like the microaggressions, it's like, okay, do you know about beer? Where did you come from? It's still very accepting, and people might treat that on the same level as anything, but from my experience, there are very two different, you know, levels towards complete hostility, which I found in some like pubs that I've been to. I won't mention them because it probably wasn't their fault; it was their clientele's fault. There's certainly a different level, and I think as long as the people who own those spaces and, you know, who brew the beer, like, have that kind of level of understanding, like everyone's welcome here, I think that will, you know, just
transmit through.
It will go out. It's like roots of a tree. It will filter out towards the rest of the industry. So, good for her. I followed her on Twitter and Instagram. Like, good for her. You know, support her. It's not just her. You know.
No.
I saw the Craft Beer channel put out a video. I think it was. I think the base conversation was about Cloudwater going into, you know, like Tesco and stuff like that. But they're still supporting these very niche indie brewers who have people from, you know, different backgrounds and sexualities and stuff like that. And it was a really, you know, enlightening and welcome topic of conversation. It's like these two white dudes who fit into the very, you know, sadly mold that we put, you know, people into. Like, yeah, beard. I'm looking at your beard, Adam, your beard, Ben, and you, Adil. You know, hirsute men, white men usually. It's like they're talking about, let's make these spaces more welcoming. It's like I have a job to do that as well, because it's like I go to these craft brew places and I know them and I know the people there, but I have to also make that place welcoming for other people.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
You know, we all have to do that.
Yeah, I think that's why when people do come forward, it's important to spend a bit of time reading them.
Yes.
And seeing what they're saying, particularly when a lot of them come forward, and you know, because you're not going to be able to read every story, and everyone has to protect themselves in their own way. You can only handle so much of some of these things, particularly when they are heavy. But it is important and incumbent on us all to, particularly people who look like me, as we talked about, that fall into the not usually affected by these directly category and is very often perpetrating them, to look at why, what happened, who it's happening to, and to try and take in those stories. And that, it comes down to the part where, the ones that get called out, you try not to buy their stuff if that's how it's going. If they're doubling down, you tell them that you're not engaging with their things until they clean up their act. And also, I spend a lot of time thinking about my own behaviours and all the rest of it, and thinking about how, as you said, making places more welcoming. How can I do that? And how can I stop myself falling into the pitfalls of accidentally doing that or not realising I'm doing it? Because
absolutely,
it's very easy to, I'm just fitting in with the vibe of the place that I'm in, and not taking the step outside the door and thinking, if I was coming into this fresh, how would I feel? And then doing that, if I didn't look like I do, how would I feel, and all that. And you don't get that perspective on it, which sometimes you need, unfortunately, people to come forward with their own terrible experiences that they've had to give you that. Just bear that in mind, that just because the vibe in the place isn't good for you doesn't mean that that's the best it can be, or that's the way it should be.
Exactly.
Nice. Good. A good note to finish on. Excellent. I'm glad we spent 10 minutes there just to run through that. Thank you, everybody. Let's quickly round out our beers then. For me, it's a very easy one this week. I'll just jump straight in. It's the Pocket Rocket for me. The stout is nice, but I'm going to reach for that Pocket Rocket almost every time I go to the shop.
I was just saying, so literally have had the Pocket Rocket, haven't had the stout, and that's, like I said before, I know Arbor so well that I could almost guaranteed that was going to be the better beer, so I've never had the stout. But I will have the stout based on your review of it, because it sounds good.
Yeah, just a little Sunday evening, just a little beer if you want one. Just grab that. Nice. Lucy, we'll jump to you as you kicked us off with the Brew York and the Equilibrium.
Yeah, it's pretty much of a no-brainer as well for me, Ben. Like, I love Brew York. I love everything they do. As I say, high praise. Think they make best stouts this side of wherever in the UK. You know, like I'm thinking like a Munson. You know, like probably like anywhere in Scandinavia they make amazing stouts. But yeah, it's becoming cliche now. It's got to go to the New York brewery. Equilibrium.
They definitely seem like they might be your faves this
They
year.
have been this year, and it seems like I have no budget for whatever they're selling. I will buy it at this point, which is a dangerous precedent to set. So, but yeah, it's a lot of their beers like have that same kind of feel for me, but it doesn't make them any less fantastic. I've come on here and said like, oh yeah, very soft, very good water quality, and fruity, punchy, you know, bit of pininess, but it doesn't. It just means that they're all fantastic, and
nice.
Maybe they're using the same recipe for every beer, and I'm just falling for it.
Just put a new name on it every week.
Yeah. Like Malibu Stacy hat.
But she's got a new hat. Adel, we'll jump to you for the Siren or the Little Critters.
Yeah, so I like them both. Basically, it comes down to how I like my beers, and I know they're both very similar in quality, but ultimately I do like that taste curve, that journey, that feeling different tastes, ebb and flow. Some things getting stronger, and then the finish being kind of different from everything else. And they both kind of did that, but the King Crow, what it left me with was interesting and it was nice. I liked it, but ultimately, if they'd spaced out there's such a good, well-balanced Imperial Espresso Stout with the coffee, with the stout, etc. But it was so well-balanced, and then it was, and now we're in the finish. And if it had, like, that well-balanced sort of had a bit more going on, such that I have the sip, I'm tasting these things, I'm now noticing, like, if I, like, basically the problem is why I like the sort of more curvy drinks like the Scattered Light, which sort of had much more of a, and now we're having this more citrusy note, we're having these roasted, these multi notes are sticking around now that the sweetness is not totally in the forefront. Those types of things is because when I'm not on a podcast tasting beer, I'm not going to notice that balance nearly as much. And so what I like about why I really go off after those taste curve beers is because when I'm at the pub, when I'm at the, you know, or whatever, having the drink generally, if you give me them a little more separate, I'll notice them 9 times out of 10. While I feel like if I was like at the pub and I was having a pint of the King Crow, I'd be like, this is pretty good. And then I would just keep drinking it pretty quickly because I'm at the pub hanging out with my friends, also especially nowadays, because boy, is that novel, and that makes me drink quicker, turns out. There's stories to be said later. But like, and so I feel like if I'm not sort of tasting a beer or on this podcast, I'm going to lose a lot of what's really interesting about the King Crow just because of that. And so I'm going to give it to the Scattered Light by Siren just because it's a little more universal. It's also just basically more to my taste. I like that slight that separation, but also not direct. Like I like the fact that a beer can move between these moments of its taste, and the King Crow was very much more of a, wow, we've got a really well-balanced beer. Oh, now it's the finish.
Nice. Nice.
So they're both really good.
Good. Okay.
I like your reasoning. Picking in favour.
Perfect.
Even I understood that.
Excellent.
Good. So, if you, dear listener, viewer, want to chat to us about the beers you've been drinking, the games you've been playing, or anything else, you can do so in lots of different ways. At TankedUpCast on the socials. I'm at Nova_47. Adel is at the Omniarch. Lucy is JuicyLuce9. Adam, if people want to chat to you, where do they go? How do they do it? Where can they see your stuff?
So I am at Snack it's APT Snick on Twitter and Instagram and Twitch and everything. And I also write stuff for Out of Lives when I can work out how. And on my own site, rattlon.co.uk, where I do kind of like short stories and some different stuff. I've been working on a treatment or an outline for how I would make the live action Gundam film. There's 2 acts out so far, and I'm working on my kind of finale for that just now. That will hopefully go up in the next week or 2. So yeah, you can check that out there.
Nice.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on.
Like a true pirate, I hijacked all of this.
No, you don't come on enough, you know?
And
it's been, what, 6 7 months, 8, 9
Elite
months.
Dangerous is perfect for this podcast, because you can buy beers.
Wait, what?
Yeah. You can
I'm
buy
playing,
1
I'm
ton.
downloading it right now.
No, you can buy a ton of beer or multiples of 1 ton of beer for cargo and transport it elsewhere, but it's in the game.
Where do I buy this game and how much is it?
You can buy it on
I
Steam.
have to say
the internet.
One of my favorite things about video games is how developers try and make being drunk a thing. Because it's almost always like increasing the roam and like adding more motion blur or just blur in general, and you're like, yes, you've told me I've had 2 beers.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, have you been drunk? What? Fuck off, nerds. Get better at being drunk.
What are you, 5?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So everybody also go to outoflives.net. As Adam said, there's lots of articles, other podcasts and things to listen to and read over there as well. Check us out if you are already on Twitch, or if you haven't been there, come and watch us live almost every Tuesday nights. Also, you can go to the Out of Lives Network YouTube page to catch up, see our beautiful faces and the beers as well. That's everything. That's us. This is what we've done. This is who we are. We've been tanked up. Bye.
You lot are fantastic. I enjoyed recording with you.
We love you too.
I love you all, and also ciao.
Bye bye.
Adieu.
www.outoflives.net